So I just helped my girlfriend set up her first ever credit card, and it's funny because her credit score just went up 30 points from it. And she had never owned a credit card up until this point. And so I went it up and told her a bit about credit and helped her understand a little bit more, just because credit score is very important. And I want her to be able to have a good credit score, but I also don't want her to go through some of the mistakes that I had went to when I got my first credit card. Because honestly, when I got my first credit card, it was kind of just like, oh, I wanted to do it. But no one really ever told me exactly what getting your first credit score or credit card really meant, and how to use it. And I feel like that's something I definitely wish someone had told me. So I made sure and told her some of these things. That way she can make sure she's doing the right things and not messing herself up with this credit mistakes that can happen. So the first thing I honestly told her, and some people might disagree with this, but her personally, like my girlfriend, she's pretty scared of credit. She's very terrified of it because she sees the things that people do and she really wants nothing to do with it. And I understand that, honestly, personally, I think that's a good reason to not be in credit because deep down she knows it could be scary. She doesn't want to deal with it. So I told her with her first credit card, her scores are already really amazing right now. Her scores are like 730 on Experian and 750 on TransUnion. So she's already got a pretty decent score, and she's only 21. So she's still very young with a really good score. So she doesn't really need to do anything right now in terms of credit. So I told her only use that credit card for gas. Legit, that's it. She has a Discover It student card, with a $1,500 credit limit and a pretty nice interest rate. And that's the only card she has. And I told her just literally only use it for gas. Don't use it for all these other things. Don't try to pay. She already has a good emergency fund. She has her debit card that she still uses wisely. Everything she pays for in debit, and she gets cash as well from her serving job. She doesn't need to use that credit card for anything else. So I told her, only use it for gas. Just use it, make payments, show you're good with it, and that's all you need to do right now. You don't need anything else. You don't need to, be using it and trying to like boost rewards and try to find all this. And as I was like telling her this, it kind of made me think, about people who don't really have much knowledge in credit. I feel like a lot of people, especially in the credit card industry, they tend to try to tell you all these different things and bonus points and rewards about credit cards, like how you get, 2% cash back on this and 3% cash back on travel and 5% cash back on restaurants at this certain time period and all these different things. And I think if you are big in the credit game and you know how to utilize it correctly, you can. But it also made me think about someone like my girlfriend who literally doesn't care about any of that stuff. Like she just doesn't notice that. It makes me think like just how simplified our life can kind of be sometimes when we don't like think about it. And I feel like sometimes with credit cards, we're always thinking about, how we can get rewards back the fastest and how we can spend money on this to get the cash back. And I feel like sometimes that can be a trap because it kind of forces you to spend money. Like everyone always talks about the Venture X card or the American Express Platinum and how the annual fee is so high, but it's well worth it because you get so many points back. And do I think those are good cards if the right people are using them? I do, yes. However, I feel like those cards kind of give you an incentive to make you have to do these things. Like both of those cards are really meant for travel, and so it's kind of like the cards are only useful if you're traveling in the way that you'd want to. Like for me personally, I know some of the bigger perks with those cards is like the lounges to be in the lounge. And personally, like I don't see a point of being in an airport lounge. Like when I'm at the airport, I'm just trying to get on the plane and leave. I'm not really caring about sitting in the lounge and dining there and sitting there for a bit. Like no, like when I get on, in the airport, I hope my plane is starting in like the next hour to 2 hours. I don't care for that. I will say though, the TSA pre-check is pretty good. That's something that would be useful. But sometimes like they make it where you have to travel all the time, and it's good to travel. It is, if you have the money to do it, definitely do it. But sometimes it just makes you the incentive to do it. Like earlier today, I went out to eat, and if you have Discover right now, they're doing a new 5% cash back on restaurants. And so I realize now for me, I want to simplify a bit of my credit card spending, because I feel I've always seen advice where people say, like, oh, use all your money on a credit card and get the cash back. Or some people say, oh, don't use credit cards at all. And so for me, I think it's important for me to use credit cards wisely for what they're meant to be used for. If there's cards that have 5% on restaurants and stuff, you can use them on restaurants. However, just pay it back immediately with your debit card. And if you can't, um, personally, I don't think you should go out to the restaurant, or you should be using a debit card. And I used to always like prioritize cashback all the time on credit cards, even if it was like only like 1% back or 1.5%, like something still small. I would still use it, and it's like there's no point to use that, even though getting cash back like that is still better than getting nothing back. But if you're gonna end up being in debt and that interest rate kicks in, then there's no point for that percent cash back. And I had to learn that for myself. And so I want my credit card system to be pretty simple. Right now, I have about 4 credit cards, and really only like one of them is actually really useful to me that I use a lot. And the others, like they're cool here and there, but they're not really needed. And so like I want to make sure that I'm having the right ones for the right times and the right things that I need, because I really don't need anything else. I want my credit card strategy to be simplified, and obviously it is good to use credit and to show some history, but also I don't need to be doing all the extra sometimes with these things and trying to like showboat and go above and beyond. I just need to do what I can with my credit cards, keep it simplified, and stay out of debt. That's the only thing that really matters. Staying out of debt, not doing all the extra, trying new things. Like, no, stay out of debt. Don't put yourself in bad things. Even sometimes for me, I have to take a break on credit cards and go straight back to debit, because sometimes these credit cards are so simplified. They're so easy. They look nice. They feel nice in your hands. It makes you want to use them. But you have to be better than that. I remember I seen this trend on TikTok where people were like putting their credit cards as a magic wand and going around spending. Like stuff like that is like the first way easily to consumerism, like and overspending, thinking that you're a magical princess going out and you can spend all the money you want because it's on a credit card, and then that bill kicks in, and now what are you gonna do about it? And so for me, it's important to not be like that way. Use my cards and spend wisely. And for anyone who's getting a credit card first, I really would advise starting slow, something small, only spending on like gas or like, some type of food item here and there, like once a month, and not doing too much, because credit cards are a dangerous game and you need more time and experience in the field. And you don't need to be spending all this money on, your first card. I feel a lot of people are going to try to tell you, oh, you got to get this next card that has this cash back on this and get this next card that has this cash back. And I'm realizing, I'm like, man, if I told all that stuff to my girlfriend, she started freaking out and losing her mind. So I'm not even going to do that to her right now. In the future, if the time is right and she, starts to learn more things about credit and understand it more, I'll start explaining it more and more. But right now she just is cool with the one card. She don't need to learn all that other stuff. Do it slowly and surely. Everything else will come to it when it comes. But she don't need none of that right now. And so that's a good lesson to anybody out there who's also dealing with their first card, or if you know someone who's dealing with their first card, don't overwhelm them, because then they go down this rabbit hole and it's not gonna look nice. So just make sure to keep yourself cool. Don't have anything be too much, and keep it simplified.